This is Techie and the Biz, a podcast to explain and simplify how business technology is changing and why it can benefit your organization. Over the past year, we have seen the industry completely transform in preparation for the AI revolution. More data is coming from more edge devices, improving the cost and experience of delivering goods and/or services to consumers. Cybercriminals also see the potential for the AI revolution, specifically by attacking the increased number of devices at the edge, which include the smartphones we love and use every day. Over 47% of companies report major impacts on their organizations from mobile device-related breach incidents, costing an average of almost $5 million per incident.
Today, we're excited to welcome to the podcast a guest that can help us unpack the current state of cybercrime and help us navigate to hopefully safer waters. Peter Nicoletti is currently the global CISO for Checkpoint Software, a leading cybersecurity provider specializing in highest efficacy firewalls, endpoints, cloud, and email risk reduction tools and strategies. Pete is a member of the FBI InfraGard and Secret Service Electronic Crimes Task Force. Pete has been in IT and security for over 30 years, with the last 20 years as a CISO in 2 Fortune 100 organizations. He has been working with artificial intelligence for over 10 years now, starting with a DARPA-funded project, and has been interviewed over 200 times on TV as an AI expert for Good Morning America, Fox Business, BBC, and other major networks. Welcome, Pete.
Welcome.
And I'm here now. This is the pinnacle of my career.
You just keep moving up.
Yeah. This is great. Great to be here with you guys this morning. And yeah, I'd love to help demystify some of what's going on and especially focus on what you guys are doing about it with us. So we've got some exciting news to talk about today.
And we're definitely excited to start talking about it. But before we dive into this really important topic, I want to talk about the elephant in the room. Uh-oh. Specifically, has anyone ever told you that you could be the doppelganger for none other than Star Trek's Captain Kirk, Mr. William Shatner?
Yes.
So my wife and I like to attend Star Wars openings dressed as Star Trek just to see what people say.
That's so funny.
When I do a reverse image search, one of the things that you have to do with AI risks is know where your image is being used, both in an unauthorized and authorized way. So if you look up a reverse image search, like facecheck.ai is the one I use most frequently to see where people's pictures are being used. My picture does come up as the William Shatner doppelganger. So in walking through airports, once in a while I get a fun
Can I get your autograph?
Hasn't gone that far. I guess I need to put on a little bit more weight to get the picture now.
The role of CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, has really expanded over the last 10 years. Today, the role wears many hats and is evolving from a more technical role to a highly strategic, engaging, and holistic role. As a highly coveted CISO and expert in your field, what would you say is an important change to the CISO role, and how do you see enterprises utilizing this change?
Erika, it's true. The role has changed. It used to be the biggest nerd, the smartest person that knew how to do networking, knew how to do security, and they were behind the scenes. Now with threats that can take down a company and having the CISO and staff be some of the only people that understand the threats, the CISO role has taken on a couple of really interesting aspects. Number one is a translator. You have to be able to discuss threats and have executives and the board of directors understand those threats to where, your security program can be expanded to deal with those, or the threats can be ignored, or the threats can be addressed in some other way. But the bottom line is that translation ability, because us nerds, we talk in some crazy language. If I told my past CEO that my website was you know going to be hit with SQL injection, with cross-site scripting and cookie injection, they'd look at you like you have two heads. But the minute you say, look, our website has vulnerabilities that if we take it offline and it causes $19,000 of outage per minute, you're translating to a business imperative, and you're translating to something that the executives can understand. Because the other thing that's changed, and I kind of hinted at it, is not just a translator, but you have to sell your program. You're constantly involved in justifying your security program, because security programs are expensive. Let's face it, for large companies, and certain people think that they're not really worth the money. So you have to sell your program and make sure that you describe the risks that you're dealing with. And third, security people used to be the last to know when there was a new business project going on. And that's no longer possible, because security needs to be involved in these, mergers or new business launches or conversions or whatnot, so that security can be layered in without impacting the business. The security people used to be the know people, but what they really need to be is the KNO people, where they know about the issues, understand the risks. And it's really important now with artificial intelligence, because here we have something that can be used as a weapon against us, but also to accelerate our business. So there's no better person typically than a CISO that knows all of the new artificial intelligence tools, how they can help the business, what are they going to be the highest return on investment projects, versus on the other side, the dark side. We live in a post-real society, and having to deal with deep fakes and crazy things that are going on. And for example, this week we saw the very first no-click exploit hitting mobile devices. So being able to understand those risks and making sure that your countermeasures in place, and translating that crazy nerd talk to executives so that they stroke the checks. It has been a very big evolution to the role. Long answer for a short question. How about that?
That I think that kept us exactly where we want to go next, especially when I'm looking at the live threat map behind you and watching this silent war taking place. And for us, it's incredibly important to learn and know more about not only the fact that you have to partner with the business to kind of know what's going to be the next thing you have to solve for, but also obviously selling it as a complete program. And I'm wondering, what specifically have you seen that's new and different with the use of AI by cyber criminals in attacking devices at the edge?
Artificial intelligence is a dual use weapon. And when we say dual use in that it can be used for good and it can be used for bad, just like a gun or a knife. What we're seeing the criminals do is they don't care about laws. They don't care about guardrails. They don't care about watermarking. They don't care about all of the legal controls that we're trying to put on legitimate use. So the criminals are creating code. They're downloading and training their own large language models, and they're using data that they've stolen rather than data that they have legitimate access to. So they're doing things like super hyper targeted whaling, where the fish is going directly to executives with information about that executive that only hackers know from stealing information, whether it be, a hospital that they stole information from, or the business itself. So we're seeing hyper targeted emails, and we're seeing hundreds of millions more people being college level English speakers. With artificial intelligence, the tools create perfectly crafted, English. We're We've seen, we know that they pass all the SAT tests for college level English. We're also seeing code creation. So, typically if you go to a large language model, any of them, and say, hey, I want to create a 0-day exploit against XYZ, the people behind the AI will say, no, I really can't help you with that. But, these tools that our adversaries are using don't have those guardrails. So they happily say, oh, yeah, I see CVE 123, I see CVE 789. I can combine those two and make something new and unique that perhaps the intrusion prevention systems have never seen before. So, and we're seeing that happen. We're also seeing online profile creation where people are creating if you go to the dark web, you'll see it all day long. Twitter profiles for sale, Facebook profiles for sale for creation, where they're created with fake people. And we're also seeing crazy things where job applicants are being, artificial intelligence is completely creating fake job applicants. And then finally, more closer to home, we're seeing mobile threats increase. We are not winning the battle. For people, we call them prospects, people that don't have Checkpoint or MetTel services right now. They're prospects. They're being barraged by these threats that, Erika mentioned against IoT devices and cell phone devices, because they know that's where the criminals know where the money is, and the money is in cracking these devices and having access to people's, wallets, their Bitcoin wallets and other valuable data that they can have. And without protection, the default ability for our phones and our systems to protect themselves, it's just not good enough anymore. We have to react so much faster. One of the things that's behind the scenes here is we talk about the threat cloud. Well, every big company, from Microsoft to Cisco to everybody has their monitoring threats. The biggest difference between their threat monitoring and what we do is we have actionable intelligence, and we actually update every single device that MetTel's managing and we're managing in 2 seconds. So it's an unprecedented response to new threats that we're seeing. So a new 0-day, a new approach at an attack. Our artificial intelligence based rules. We have about a little over 90 engines. Close to 50 of those are AL or machine learning based, and we quickly determine, how big of a threat it is and what the appropriate countermeasure is, and then most importantly, we take action on it. So in 2 seconds, everybody's updated. So yes, the threats are increasing, but companies like Checkpoint that lead in efficacy are having to respond almost instantly to these new threats. And the only way to do that is with artificial intelligence.
I love hearing that AI is being used for good in your example, even though our 17-year-old would definitely argue that AI to get a perfect score on the SAT would be a cause of a use of AI for good. But that aside, another area that seems to be growing in AI is biometric security, transforming identification verification and security at large. Companies are using facial recognition, fingerprint authentication. When talking about cybersecurity and prevention of cyber attacks, would it be fair to say that biometrics are the best security at the edge for someone's personal device?
If you look at who are the highest security entities out there, you look at the U.S. government, you cannot access any U.S. government resources without having a card to access. You have to have something. You have to have a token. If you look at highly privileged users within companies that are CMMC compliant, they're going to have something beyond just a login. Logins, if you go to haveibeenpwned.com, the security researcher there has billions of email accounts and passwords. and it'll tell you which websites that you've been compromised. And you can put in your phone number now, so you can see the phone numbers that share your phone numbers where it's at as well. So, and we're also seeing, I'm getting to the answer. So we're seeing multi-factor authentication fatigue, where, we saw it just out in Las Vegas against a couple of large casinos, where the attacker just pounded on the authentication process, and finally the person said, "Okay, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm tired of dealing with this. I approve it." And so we see that multi-factor authentication fatigue is an issue. So yes, we need to step up to biometrics, but then biometrics, are not perfect yet either. If you look at me, you probably think, yeah, I'm really talking to a real person. But, we saw it was just a year ago that $24 million was stolen during a fake Zoom call, where 7 out of the 8 participants were AI generated.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're also seeing multiple cases of interviews for, HR interviews for jobs are being done by fake AI generated. We're seeing, lots of, if you go to Twitter, it's a cesspool of AI generated stuff. So, some of the things that we recommend in addition to biometrics, and by the way, you didn't mention voice, but voice is trivial to copy. I have, licensed copies of tools that with 30 seconds of your voice, I can completely copy it. I can even add stress to it. Like we've seen in last year, we had 70 successful, fake kidnappings where, they called, the grandparents of the kids. So voice is no longer a good biometrics. Face is challenging, but one of the things that we recommend is always turn around in a video call. There's no AI tools right now that are filming or that are able to create the back of a head. So some of our high tech, when we call the help desk, we're doing things like holding up our government issued ID. We're holding up our corporate issued ID. So we have a huge range of skills. But one thing that they don't have that we have is that we can share information about their tactics and their techniques. Most of the hackers are kind of solo, and they, there's not, well, there is black hat for hackers, but it's for good guys. There's no black hat for real, true black hats. They're not going to go to the conference and say, "Hey, here's how I got into XYZ company." So it's very difficult for them to share information. But for us, as you heard in my introduction, working with the FBI and the Secret Service, and also all the groups that I'm a member of. I actually started an ISSA chapter with a couple other buddies, and been very active in the Cloud Security Alliance and a number of other security groups, and that's to share information. So when we see something, we share it. So with Checkpoint, we have a threat intel bulletin that goes out every single day. We have a summary at the end of the week, and you as a customer and a partner get that, and your customers and end users can get that as well. So, or they can be blissfully ignorant and be protected by the MetTel check part. And that's what most of our customers are, is they want to be blissfully ignorant and not worry about all the bombs raining as you see.
That's why they hire us to worry for them, right?
Yes, yes.
We recently actually replaced outside doors to our house, and of course Max chose a lock with fingerprint access, but he only used his fingerprint, which was a little frustrating, and he forgot to tell us. It was probably the most frustrating for our 17-year-old son, which he mentioned, who was in the pouring rain couldn't figure out why he couldn't get into the house.
I did also add a code for entry, but now that you say that, I may have forgotten to mention that. But at least it sounds like Pete would agree that at least biometrics is one good layer of security.
Yeah,
it absolutely is. I changed the doors in my cabin out west, and the locals are like, "What kind of an idiot are you?" Like, what are you talking about? These are brand new doors, brand new handles, and they're they're not bear-proof handles. They're
Oh.
so the
That's a different
bears,
kind of security. Yeah.
yeah, the bear just opens it up, walk downstairs, ate pistachios.
As you had mentioned, like you had said that this past year we've seen lots of scams. Criminals are using replicas and of people's voices and altering them to have different effects to extort money from their family and friends. And it's gotten really scary that it's hard to decipher real from fake. So that was interesting that you said that there are ways to approach it. I'm wondering if with the demographic of who's using the end devices changing, with younger people using the internet more frequently, is there a different approach to how you look for these cyber criminals?
Yeah, frankly, younger people are typically more savvy in certain ways, but then they also push the envelope in other ways. We're seeing, right now, if I asked everybody my age if they've ever jailbroken a phone, they'd look at me like, "What are you talking about, jailbreaking a phone? Why would I need to do that? What is that?" Whereas if you talk to a kid these days, they're like, "Yeah, I jailbroke my phone so I can download, this game that is not available on the regular, the regular marketplaces." And guess what? That game is infected with who knows what
Yeah.
kind of nonsense. So in a lot of ways, they're more savvy, but in a lot of ways, they're not as savvy because they're putting themselves at risk. And, that's once again back to the Checkpoint MetTel partnership. Those are the kind of risks that we see that people don't understand what they're putting themselves at risk about. And we have that ability to protect that phone, even if it's jailbroken, or to prevent it from being jailbroken. So, Erika, the question also, you know, yeah, I always when I get interviewed around Thanksgiving and Christmas, I always say this needs to be a family conversation of, what you're doing online and what grandpa and grandma are doing because they're the least savvy, right? They're the ones that are getting extorted for money. We have to look at what these kids are doing, but also understand that typically kids understand in a lot of cases what are some of the cyber threats. So helping them protect against what they don't understand, what risks they're putting themselves and their family at, but also having dinner time conversations. We're seeing older folks, veterans being taken advantage of with these cybersecurity scams. And everybody gets email. Everybody's connected to the sewage pipe of the internet. We are losing the battle. The threats are increasing. The number of people that are being affected by these threats and the companies being affected by these threats, the numbers are still increasing. So, other than Checkpoint and MetTel customers, they're failing at their cybersecurity programs, both at their offices and at home. So, uh, we've got to step it up a little bit more.
Yeah, we've got work to do. And in response to the increasing attacks on edge devices, MetTel did recently announce the addition of Checkpoint Harmony Mobile Threat Defense to its portfolio of enterprise mobile products. How does Checkpoint's Harmony help defend organizations from attacks on mobile devices? And what makes it different than, say, a network firewall solution?
Checkpoint's been offering a mobile software for many years, and think of what you're trying to protect. You're trying to protect your company assets because a lot of people are using their phone to join meetings and read emails and do all the things because we're in a highly mobile society. So, all of a sudden our perimeter is extended outside of the firewall to all the devices that are out there. So where the firewall protected the perimeter and the firewall in the cloud protects those assets that are there, there's no such thing as a personal device firewall. Well, that's Harmony Mobile, and that's what it does. It's protecting you from launching malicious code, It's protecting you from, putting your Active Directory password in a website that looks like your website, but is not your website. And that's what the criminals are doing. They're sending you, you know, requests for you to log in. Hey, your Microsoft password expired. Log in here, and of course, our tools will prevent that. So, whether it's code execution, whether it's taking over an account, there's so many different threats that we're seeing, and typically people are not protecting those devices. They don't realize that these devices are supercomputers. They have more computing power on them than the lander did when we landed on the moon. And have access to more applications. That's the other thing we're seeing. Companies that want their employees to work anywhere. So they want them to be able to access Salesforce. They want them to be able to access their applications in the cloud, but they have to be able to do it safely. So we're seeing that firewalls only protect corporate and cloud resource. We don't see firewalls out at the edge devices. So our IoT devices and our cell phones need a different type of protection. They're accessing, software as a service. They're accessing Salesforce and other cloud resources and applications, to do billing and to do quotes and to check their email. And you have to have protection that's specifically made for the type of threats that mobile devices have. So that partnership that we just announced there is really a fundamental. It's going to fundamentally help all of our mutual customers to have that confidence that their mobile device is not going to be the threat vector that takes them down. And so Checkpoint's been doing this for a long time, and we have a new CEO that is really understanding that we need to be literally the highest efficacy provider. And that's one of the reasons that, MetTel selected us. The recent competitive reports that we have against other tools, the recent efficacy reports that show what percentage of new threats and also CVEs, day 0 and day 0+1 threats. It shows that, competitively, the tool works better than anyone else. And it's super easy to deploy. That's the other thing. People used to hate mobile device things because it slurped so much, brain power from the device. And all of a sudden the device starts working much slower. We saw it, if you guys remember Symantec and McAfee in the day, you download that on your laptop, all of a sudden your laptop, runs, runs like crap. So, it has to be efficient. It has to be behind the scenes. It has to prevent all these new threats, but not get in the way of business. And that's why this partnership really makes a lot of sense. You guys are out there, managing millions of cell phones and distributing millions of phones and having the best protection for those phones and your customers. It makes perfect sense. So it's a great marriage, and our mutual customers are going to benefit from it.
And it's really great to hear. And I could tell you, as an end user of the software for a year now, and I try to be very vigilant. I don't click on random things or try to download anything on my smart device. But I've had a few instances already when it's as humans we don't even think about it. And I happened to be on Facebook, and I clicked on something that was a product that I wanted to get more information on. And it got blocked, and it right away generated an event behind the scenes. And I completely forgot that I had Checkpoint Mobile Threat Defense on the device, but it had done live blocking for something that was malicious. So that's really where I was really excited with the tool when we started testing it over a year ago, and something that we definitely know a lot of our end users can benefit from. As Erika said, the significant amount of cyber attacks out there and the financial impact to organizations. And this really creates that additional layer of protection to protect the user from themselves, not just from the corporate data or access to the corporate data.
Humans fall for a sense of urgency and a compelling message. And that's exactly what the criminals are doing. They want you to click on something because people are working at the speed of business. You know, when people get an email and they see it, they don't they don't have that spider sense. They assume that it's not going to take down their entire world, and that's exactly what email can do, and certain websites. So it's fantastic. We hear these stories every day, and it's great to hear. Now, why did it take you a year to evaluate? That's another whole story. Usually you know the value.
Now we're getting political. We're getting into corporate
I will
politics.
say that
now.
I have noticed frequently when we're with the kids and we have teenagers that are clicking away and we're always like, don't do that. It has come up a few times and you're like, I can't open it. How come you're opening it? So it's in real time. We're seeing it work.
Yeah, I'm like,
Well,
if
Erika,
you're not sure, don't.
think about how many parents are out there with their corporate phone that shove that phone in front of the kid's face, say, hey, play this game, download this, Minecraft this, whatever. And those games, so they're taking a business device, using it for personal purposes, and putting that device at risk. So it's absolutely imperative that things need to work in the background to prevent those kind of risks, because we're seeing the games infected. We're seeing, BYOD devices, bring your own devices, impacted. The same thing goes with laptops, where parents, say, hey, here's, electronic babysitter. Kids go wherever they go. And unless you have that protection on the laptop and on the phones, your company is going to suffer issues. Also, people are opening up their personal emails on their laptops and their phones, which don't have typically any type of protection other than native, Gmail protection, which is not so good.
Yeah.
For those listeners out there that want a free tool on their laptop that'll give them pretty decent protection, you can always go to zonealarm.com. There's a perceived threat. We've seen all the movies. We know where this goes. Once artificial intelligence in a robot that can fix itself and improve himself and get smarter all the time, us humans are, could be at a challenge. So the governments understand these risks, and they also understand that we need to make investments in it. And you're seeing our current administration announce huge investments with partners, the Oracles and the Open AIs and NVIDIA and the chip makers. We're seeing monstrous investments because our smart leaders understand that he and she who leads in the artificial intelligence, so-called, the space race, leads in competitiveness and efficiencies and ability to do things that other countries and companies can't. So we're going to see huge investments. We're going to see huge risks. And, the world, the other thing is, the interesting thing about AI is it's evolving faster than any other technology that we've ever dealt with as humans. It's evolving and more people are using it faster than radio, faster than televisions, faster than email, faster than web, faster than any other technology advance that we've ever had. We have more announcements and more people using AI than any other technology in the history of the human race.
Pete is a cybersecurity expert and CISO of one of the most prominent cybersecurity companies in the world. What advice would you give to IT professionals with a finite amount of resources to protect their organization's network and devices? Where is a good place to start?
You have to look at force multipliers, things that cost a little but fix a lot. We've been kind of centered on mobile device security. That's huge. We're seeing, in the next few years, we're actually going to hit the ratio of over 100 IoT devices to every human. So the risks for, devices that you have, whether it be TVs and refrigerators and coffee makers and smart lights and smart devices, those risks are increasing because people are buying on price, they're not buying on security. So Where would I say to invest in? If you look at the Checkpoint 2025 risk report, it really lays out, and it also has CISO recommendations in the last couple of pages. If you look at the threats, look at where they're coming from. They're coming in through mobile devices and email. I'd start at looking at the threat reports and looking at your security stack and how responsive it is to those top threats. And then, of course, simple things like, companies that are impacted by ransomware, they didn't have a zero trust strategy. They didn't have good authentication. Max, you talked about it a little bit earlier about two-factor authentication and up in the authentication game. Well, that's step one in a zero trust process. The step two is, of course, microsegmentation, so that you don't have a single breach go east and west and have access to everything. So we now have optimization that's AI based. Hey, I need my firewall to recategorize the rules so that it's optimally, not only the highest efficacy, but it's also working in an optimal fashion. So lots of ways that we're leveraging artificial intelligence behind the scenes to make things easier, because, as I keep stressing, we still keep losing the battle.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I know. Perhaps I'm naive or just a hopeless optimist, but in a society that really feeds off of negativity, it's nice to hear and know that it's possible with the right safety measures and software in place. The AI revolution can be one of the most beneficial in history.
You hit the nail on the head. We have to be able to leverage artificial intelligence in a safe way, but also prevent it from kicking our butts and impacting our business and stealing our data.
All right. Well, that brings us to game time.
Oh boy.
So this is where we play a little game to get to know you better. We know you spend half of your time in Colorado and the other half of your time in the Florida Keys, which I recently learned is sport fishing capital of the world.
That's my backyard, yes.
That must be the most beautiful water to see.
Well, it's clear. One of the reasons I like living down the Keys versus other places, even in Florida, is, on the West Coast, I call it chocolate milk. You can't see the bottom. You can't see the fish. I can see the lobsters under my dock. So in 1 week, I ice fished and then dolphin fished. So that's not many fishermen can say that.
Yeah. All right. Well, with this game, I'm going to just ask you this or that, and you just tell me which of the two choices are more you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Text or call?
Oh, that's tricky these days. I used to be all call, but now I'll do a text.
Okay. Ski or fish?
Oh, crap. That's a tough one because I love skiing.
I know these are trick questions.
Yeah, that's the reason that we bought the cabin out there, is to be near Breck. I've skied and fished on the same day. So you really get me with this one, but I'd have to say, while I can still ski and ski at a high rate of speed, because I love hitting 50, 60 miles an hour, I think I get a little bit more out of skiing. I see that more fishing is going to be more in my twilight once I can't ski. So I'll take skiing right now. Long answer. Sorry.
Well, having said that, would you rather ski alone or ski with friends?
My wife is a great skier, and I like, there's days when you need to ski alone if you want to put in some runs and not wait for everybody. But I like the social side of skiing. I do have an adult beverage after skiing and, talking about the day.
All right, listen to Jimmy Buffett or the Eagles.
Oh, that's another tough one. Jimmy Buffett, his career took off down here in the Keys, and he actually played one of his last concerts. And you have hard questions because those are.
I know. Well, I actually have to say that I was wondering if you ever got a chance to see Jimmy Buffett being down there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. I want to go see the Eagles at the Sphere. I'm trying to hint, double hint.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
You got to see him at the Sphere. Yeah, I missed the
Go.
last couple things place I haven't been able to see it. The Sphere is awesome. I'd have to say Jimmy Buffett. My father-in-law and my wife are true parrot heads. I'm a pretty decent parrot head, but they're serious about it. But there's a lot of good Eagles songs, but I'd have to say Jimmy.
Awesome. Smartphone or Android?
Well, isn't an Android a smartphone? I'm a
Right, iPhone or Android?
So every single question you've asked,
That was a
I
trick
mean,
too.
He has
That
both.
was a purpose trick.
yes. So I ski and I fish. I eat bear and shrimps. I mean, every question I'm in the middle of. So
Oh,
right now I'm an Android. I prefer Android.
just keeping those texts green, huh?
Yes, the color changes. Yes.
Pete, they used to green bubble shame me all the time here at the family. So
The other thing that really bothers me is Apple reduces the quality of pictures that you share. I'm not really happy with that.
Yes. Always late or always early?
I'm a slightly early person, and that took many, many years of being late. So once again, I'm on both sides of this one.
Get over it or get even?
In a lot of cases, get over it is the right answer. But if you've really done something wrong, you're going to get something back. And it might take a while, and you might not know it came from me, but be careful.
Okay.
Don't mess with me. I have a particular set of nerd skills.
Super strength or super speed?
I'm a super strength guy. I'm a Mr. Incredible guy.
I was gonna say Superman or Mr. Incredible, but I think I know your answer. All right, I just have a few more. Travel back in time or travel into the future?
Oh, I'd love the future. We know what happened in the past.
Yeah.
I'd love to go into the future. I can't wait for that to start happening.
Love and laughter or wealth and wisdom?
Love and laughter. You know, I guess that answer used to be a little bit different when I was younger, trying to attain financial levels. But my wife and I have been married for 31 years, together for 32, and 3 kids, and I'll take love and laughter over anything else, and health. So,
Well, thank you for playing with us and thank you for talking to us today.
well, you didn't ask the one crazy thing that Max knew about, and that's I have an example here. Let's see if we can pull this off. I have world records in balancing, so I can
Didn't tell me
balance.
this. He didn't share this information.
So I balance large, heavy things on my chin. I'm going to try to do something. I'm going to have to take the background off. So we're going to take a regular wine bottle. We're going to try to do it.
Oh my God. Wow.
Now that's a life skill.
That is great.
Well,
That's a pretty awesome skill.
you don't see that on interviews every day. No. So the good trick is 3 bottles end to end, and the really tricky one is 5 bottles end to end. And of course, I have weights. I've done a women's balance beam at 267 pounds, and at birthday,
Wow.
I used to balance my kids sitting on chairs, but they're now all over 6 feet, and they're not going on this chin anymore.
Wow, that's
It's
amazing. What
a
made you
good
even,
hardship.
how'd you figure that one out?
Well, Erika, the interview just got extended.
What I feel like I should ask, are the bottles emptied before you do it or are they full?
Doesn't matter. I'll do them full. We were just out in Napa, and I was doing magnums.
Wow.
Magnums. Yeah. The wine
God.
people, they'd never seen, they've seen drunk people do a lot of things, but not balanced magnums.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only way I would attempt that is because the bottle's already empty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't drop things.
Thank
you, Pete.
Thank
Thanks
you
for taking
joining us.
Yeah, thanks for taking the
Brilliant.
time.
Well, I definitely have to thank you guys for inviting me to your podcast, and I'm super excited about our partnership. We really, take security super seriously. We take our partnerships and ultimately what we do for our mutual customers super seriously. So we'd love for you guys to, people that are watching this, to explore the capabilities of the tool that we're announcing for your, to protect your, critical cell phone. So appreciate you guys with your crazy questions. Love this interview. It's been a lot of fun, where we actually did share some good information and some crazy stuff.
Thank you for joining us today, Pete, and teaching us all about cybersecurity, the current state out in the marketplace, and some real important solutions to help organizations be able to combat this never-ending threat. If you'd like to learn more about cybersecurity solutions or anything else you learned on this podcast, go to www.mettel.net or contact your MetTel sales representatives.